Manchester United have reached an agreement in principle with Matheus Cunha. United are chasing a free transfer move for Jonathan Tah. There's talk of a potential swap deal involving Antony. Mazraoui is ruled out against Brentford, opening the door for Jayden Kamason. Harry Maguire wants to finish his career at Manchester United. And Amorim has revealed the reason behind Casemiro's recent resurgence. Welcome to the channel. This is all your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with a little bit of team news ahead of tomorrow. So in the press conference, Ruben Amorim has revealed that Mazraoui cannot play on Sunday against Brentford. He is on the verge of injury. So obviously this is with the data that they collect and around the minutes and game time and stuff as well. And I do agree, Mazraoui has been, surprisingly, I think he's played more games this season than he did in his last two seasons for Bayern Munich or something like that, because he was one of the players that we remember discussing when we were signing him this summer that there were massive concerns about his injury record. So touch wood, he's actually been available pretty much every minute of every game so far this season. But we do not want to risk injury with Mazraoui at this stage in the season. He's up there with one of our better players this season. So yeah, we definitely need to wrap him in a bit of cotton wool, get him ready for the Thursday game. That's the most important game for United coming up. Samuel Lucker said that Jayden Kamason is in contention for a debut with Noussair Mazraoui not playing against Brentford. So again, we could be debutising a few more of our kind of youth players. I do think that we're still going to put out potentially a strong-ish team because we do have players coming back from injuries that we're probably going to likely want to give minutes to. Kobe Mainoo would be one of those. Obviously, De Ligt, Amad Diallo, how nice was it to see him back on the pitch midweek? So it's going to be a bit of rotation. Mason Mount maybe could be in line to start, but I'd imagine De Ligt and Amad will be off the bench and give them a few more kind of minutes. But Luke Shaw as well, potentially. We'll need to see whether he goes with Ugarte or Casemiro. I don't know if Collier's yet quite kind of back to be available on the bench. It'd be nice to see if we could give him some minutes potentially as well. But it's going to be a heavily rotated side. Amorim's already kind of confirmed that. We might see, Chido make his kind of start in the game as well. Who knows? We'll have to kind of wait and see. But it's going to be one of these, I think, where it's going to be a heavily rotated team, and we're just going to have to deal with the pain because I don't think Brentford are going to take their foot off the gas just because we're potentially playing a few youngsters or a few kind of kids in the first team. There's rumours that Bentito Mentato may also be involved in the squad, so we're going to have to wait and see. But I'd be excited to see some of these young players come through, see how they get on, and see what they're kind of all about in a first team kind of game. It's just not ideal. Ideally, you don't want to be throwing them under the bus like that, but that's the situation we're in. Thursday's a much more important game than Brentford on Sunday. And then he also said a similar thing with Dorgu, so that Patrick is tired because it's difficult to come to a club like this in the middle of the season and play every game. We'll have to be very smart against Brentford, so we could potentially see Harry Amas maybe one side, Kamason the other, and then, do some subs in the second half, or maybe, like I said, Bentito Mentato, maybe Luke Shaw starts as left wing back. So, we're going to have to wait and see, but it's going to be, like I said, by the sounds of it, Amorim's is obviously prioritising Thursday, but it'll be interesting to see a few of the young players get some minutes and get a bit of a run out and see what they're all about as well, which will be actually a little bit more excited than probably, than some of the Premier League games we've been watching this season as well. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now let's move on to some transfer news. So obviously the big talk of the town, Matheus Cunha is the one that's seen the most likely transfer. We've had reports all week suggesting about meetings and, potentially a deal being done soon, and all the kind of transfer talk, I suppose, regarding Cunha. So Rudy Galletti has said that an agreement in principle with Matheus Cunha on a contract structured through 2030. Minor details remain. Agreement on personal terms very close. Talks between United and Matheus Cunha's entourage have progressed in their last meeting. So we know there's been a few meetings this week. Ben Jacobs was saying that as well. He's kind of leading the charge on the Matheus Cunha kind of deal. So fair play to Ben Jacobs for that. Rudy Galletti's not the most credible source, though. So I would say, let's take that with a pinch of salt. Could be a little bit of clickbait because it wouldn't be hard to put a story out like that says an agreement in principle, because we know this deal is kind of ticking along behind the scenes as well. And it just seems a matter of time before maybe we get some sort of announcement and some kind of, like a here we go or something like that regarding Cunha. It's just a case of when. I think not if now with Matheus Cunha. To remind ourselves a little bit about what we're getting. So 33 appearances this season, 17 goals, 6 assists. So, to get somebody in the kind of prime as well, 25, 26 years old, for doing those sort of numbers with Wolves, we need goals in this team as well. And he's been one of the most effective goal scorers in the Premier League this season. 17 goals, 6 assists is nothing to be sniffed at. But it's not just that. I've been watching loads of his kind of clips and games and stuff as well. He does create chances that are squandered as well. So, because sometimes I watch the kind of games and stuff, and I think, God, if he's passing that ball to like Ahmad, for example, potentially that's a goal. Or if he's passing that to Bruno, potentially that's a chance. Do you know what I mean? So he is actually a lot more creative than maybe his numbers suggest as well, because you've got to remember the quality of players that he'd be playing the balls to at United as well. But to add somebody in the team that's got 20 plus goal contributions is going to be massively important for us, because that's the area of the pitch that is the priority for us and from everyone at the club as well, is goals. We need goals in this team. So to add somebody that's Premier League proven in terms of goal numbers is massively exciting for me as well. So, but give us your thoughts on Cunha in the comments. I'm sure you will. Now, another player that we were kind of linked with yesterday was Jonathan Tah, came from Sky Sports, suggesting that we would be interested. Now, Florian Plettenberg, who's actually fairly decent, like fairly credible when it comes to specifically German news players, Bayern Munich players, etc., suggesting that Manchester United have entered the race for Jonathan Tah and want to sign him on a free transfer this summer. United have held talks with his management. Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and Real Madrid are also in for him. So according to Florian Plettenberg, we've entered the race for Jonathan Tah, and we want to sign him on a free transfer this summer. That's an interesting kind of option. Definitely for free, can play in the back five, so knows the system as well. Very, very, interesting kind of player to bring in for as a free transfer. This is what I was saying yesterday when we were kind of linked with him. He's in the bottom 1% for tackles. But I think playing in that central centre-back position, you're not necessarily... You're more of a sweeper. That's the way I kind of would describe the central defender in a back three, because you want your two either side to be more aggressive and pressing out and go into the ball to try and win the ball a little bit higher. But then your central one is the kind of sweeper that will kind of move from one side to the other. When that player steps out, you're covering at the back as well. So maybe it is a positional thing where actually in that kind of central centre-back position, you're not there to make tackles, you're there to kind of sweep up and, make some clearances and blocks and stuff as well. But, would be an interesting kind of profile to be in. 29, so would bring some experience. I know some of you in comments from previous videos have been mentioning about bringing in experience in as well. Yeah, I wouldn't be against it. Wouldn't be against bringing someone in like Tah. He's a very good progressive. Look at his kind of numbers in terms of passes, progressive passes and stuff. So would definitely help us, I think, from building up from the back. And, we're very dodgy, I think, sometimes when we're trying to play out from the back. We create our own... We're almost architects of our own downfall with the playing out from the back, and he would definitely improve that as a player as well. But yeah, give us your thoughts on Jonathan Tah. However, Fabrizio Romano, though, said that Manchester United are interested, when asked on a Q&A on Gimme Sport, when he was asked if Manchester United are interested in Tah, he said there is interest from England, but it is not a concrete negotiation as of now. So, while I think he'd be a good player and stuff, I am a little bit worried that this might be agent talk and a little bit of let's link Tah with United in order to get a bigger contract or from one of the other teams that potentially are interested in him as well. Because if we go back to Florian Plettenberg's report, Barcelona, Bayern Munich and Real Madrid also in for him as well. Obviously, Alonso might be going to Real Madrid to take over from Carlo Ancelotti. Would he want to bring maybe Tah to Real Madrid? That couldn't be ruled out as well. So it feels a little bit to me, a little bit agent driven, but no smoke without fire. Keep an eye on it for you. Give us your thoughts on the Jonathan Tah situation in the comments. Good signing, bad signing? Let me know down below. Now, Christopher Vivell was in attendance at the Real Betis versus Fiorentina game last night to follow players. Now, that came out last night from Fabrizio Romano, so obviously on Thursday, Christopher Vivell apparently in attendance to watch Real Betis versus Fiorentina to follow players. whether he's there to watch Antony, see how he's getting on, so we can kind of, help negotiate his potential exit in the summer. Who knows who he was actually kind of looking at as well. But just on Antony, the desire of Real Betis is to do everything possible to keep Antony at the club. Betis is said to be more than happy with him, and I would imagine so as well. He's done really well since his short kind of time there as well, massively put himself in the shop window, but it'll come down to, will Real Betis be able to afford him? Now, one of the ways they might be able to afford him is with Johnny Cardoso. So Manchester United have in recent weeks been scouting Real Betis midfielder Johnny Cardoso. Real Betis currently have Antony on loan from United, and while no formal approach has been made yet, it remains to be seen whether any potential interest in Cardoso would pave the way for a swap deal involving the Brazilian winger. Now, that came from Sam C, who's a decent source as well. And there was a story that I broke you the other day regarding Cardoso, and United were in recent weeks been scouting him. So it's interesting that Vival has been watching Real Betis game. Was he there to watch Johnny Cardoso? I mean, that couldn't be obviously ruled out, and potentially a swap deal involving Antony. Obviously, it wouldn't be a direct swap. We would buy Cardoso for 30 million, then they would give us the 30 million back for Antony, and it would be kind of, something of that kind of nature as well. Which, you're gonna have to let me know in the comments what you think regarding that. In terms of Cardoso, very good defensive stats. He's very, very similar to Ugarte in terms of his numbers. In fact, Ugarte's got way more assists, surprisingly, on his kind of data. He's got a little bit less clearances, though, a little bit less aerials, but, he's a very kind of, he's not as progressive as what I think his highlights and bits kind of suggest as well, because his progressive passes, he's in the bottom 8 percentile for midfielders, which is exactly where Ugarte is as well. So whether he would be a rotation option to kind of come in for Ugarte, whether you could play both of them for certain games as well. We'll have to kind of wait and see what happens if Cardoso does become a solid kind of target. We'll obviously bring you more details and stuff on him as well. But he is is an interesting profile of player to be looking at as well. And obviously, if we could get some kind of deal where Antony goes, we remove him from the club and then bring in a player as part of that, then, that wouldn't be a bad shout, in my opinion. But I'm sure you'll have your own, and I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments what you think about that. Now let's move on to some other news. So Harry Maguire wants a new contract at Manchester United beyond the end of next season and would ideally like to finish his career at Old Trafford. Now that came from Sam Wallace from The Telegraph, who's a good source, suggesting that Harry Maguire would like to get a new contract at United and then see out his, finish his career at Old Trafford as well, which is obviously, that's going to divide opinion. I think because Maguire's one that's been kind of, bantered almost by the kind of fans and stuff as well. I like Harry Maguire. I think he's a very good defender. I would worry about that though, because he's 32. I wouldn't be against keeping him around though, because you've never heard any problems about him off the pitch. He's well liked behind the pitch. He's a leader in the group as well. So for all of those kind of qualities, if you want someone with experience and leadership and everything like that behind the scenes, then Harry Maguire is a very good player to kind of have around for those reasons as well. I worry about his injury record though. He is kind of one of these where we're having to manage his minutes a lot more because of his injuries, but and he's on 190 grand a week, around that kind of figure as well. And at 32, coming up 33, is he worth that amount? Because the problem with Maguire when Ten Hag was in charge, we were obviously playing Varane and Martinez, and he wasn't really involved a lot in the first team under Ten Hag for that kind of season before Martinez got injured, and he was on like 200 grand a week then, because obviously the pay cut that we've had with non-Champions League football as well, and it was kind of like, well, we're paying a lot of money for Maguire, who's effectively third or fourth choice centre-back at the time. Now, effectively, he's number one choice, I think, for the centre-back position, because he's been doing outstanding at the moment as well. I would just worry that we've made these sort of mistakes before, where we give a contract out to a player that's in a bit of kind of hot form, and then their form kind of deteriorates as well. But with Maguire, I think I wouldn't be against that. It would depend on the price. It's the short way I'm trying to kind of get to my point, which is would depend on the kind of contract. And obviously it depends on Amorim. If he values him and he thinks, actually, he's going to be my number one central centre-back and I want to keep him, then obviously we'd need to look to do some kind of contract with him as well. But yeah, interesting to see that he wants a new contract. Whether he'll get one, we'll have to wait and see. But I suppose the obvious question on that one is, would you give Harry Maguire a new contract or not? Remember, he's out of contract next season because we've done the +1 option on his contract. So technically he is out of contract, so he could walk away for free next summer. But yeah, the question is, would you give Harry Maguire a new contract? Get involved in the comments. Let me know what you think about that below. And there's not just Maguire who's kind of turned his season around, or his form around, or his kind of career around, I suppose, at United. But also Casemiro recently has been doing really well. I think we need to calm down a little bit, because he has still had games where he's not quite been at it, but in terms of the Europa League and stuff, he's been doing outstanding. So Fabrizio Romano said, sources say Ruben Amorim told Casemiro in a face-to-face meeting how grateful he is for the professionalism and how he is setting an example at Carrington. The relationship between the pair is very good now. Ruben Amorim has highlighted Casemiro as a fantastic example to follow for all the Manchester United players. Train hard, work hard, be professional, and never give up. Even when the manager doesn't play you or the media criticise you, Amorim loves that sort of mentality. And I think there's something to be kind of said with Casemiro, the way, the way he's kind of turned his form and that around. He has been, way better than what we've seen for the last 18 months from Casemiro, where, effectively he looked like he was running in treacle or in concrete. And, those issues still exist. But I think credit's got to be done for Casemiro for turning his form around, and by Romano, his professionalism, his attitude, following instructions, all of that kind of stuff as well. The ultimate professional, Casemiro, and you don't win the amount of trophies that he's won in his kind of lifetime without, I suppose, being that sort of character and that personality as well. But then also to Amorim for, changing the kind of tactics in the system slightly in order to get the best from Casemiro as well, because while it's mainly on Casemiro, I do think Amorim deserves a little bit of credit for what he's kind of done in that position as well. On that, Amorim said, we understood that we cannot jump all the time. So that he cannot jump all the time pressing high. We need to let him understand, and sometimes it is better to put 3 defenders and let him be the 4th defender and put the wing backs pressing high. So Amorim kind of saying, look, I've had to tweak his kind of tactics a little bit. So rather than the midfield or Casemiro, remember when we were criticising him the start of this season, end of last season, he'd be diving into tackles on the halfway line, and then we would just be completely exposed. And it was literally like we had no midfield. The criticism for Casemiro at that time was we had no midfield because the way Ten Hag was kind of setting the team up, which was to try and just press, and everyone's out of position. Then if you miss that press and miss that tackle, and he was mistiming his tackles or diving in, and then he'd lose the tackle, and we would just get ran through the midfield. And Amorim, I think, deserves a bit of credit because he's recognised that and said to Casemiro, look, why don't you just stop and stand around here instead of diving in and pressing all of the time? We'll use the wing-backs to do that, and you just be a shield, or use Ugarte for that, because Ugarte's elite at doing that. His pressing is up there with the best in Europe. I think Ugarte winning the ball back and pressing high. He's in the top 98%. He's in the top 2% for midfielders at tackles in the top 5 leagues. Ugarte is, and fair play to Ruben Amorim for turning that around and changing and tweaking his kind of tactics slightly in order to get the best out of the players that he's got. Doesn't get recognised enough, I think. And obviously, it's different in the Premier League because the Premier League football's it's still a little bit more fast-paced, I think, for Casemiro, but fair play to both. And then also, Ruben Amorim said Casemiro's improved a lot. You can see not the way he plays, but the way he runs. The data shows he worked really hard, and it's a very good example. It's a lesson for all the players at United. Everything can change in one moment. So Ruben Amorim kind of revealing a little bit around not just him, a slight little tactical tweak with to help get the best from Casemiro and from Ugarte in midfield, but also the player himself for coming back as well. And I suppose, like I said, you don't have the career that Casemiro's had if you're a quitter. And I like that as well. So fair play to Casemiro. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer news. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.